Also, I mean, you could thank George for that too, you know, because he said to us, you know, because he grew up through, I mean, they all went through that, those days of people, let's, you know, we've made it big, let's buy all the flash cars and big houses and whatnot. So, you know, to us that was always a very phony. He told us it was very phony, you know. So it seemed, that always seemed to stick with us as a band, all of that stuff. Mm. So now I've got 4 Cadillacs. You know.
But by this stage also, with
where do you see me yacht?
With Bon, I mean, like with his whole tattoos and his outrageous statements in the press.
Talented man. Yeah.
Yes. And having some of the greatest interviews that Sounds and NME and Melody Maker will probably ever have.
That's right. Yeah.
But still, there was this image when they talked about ACDC of basically that tattoo of Bon's and you as the schoolboy.
Mm.
Did that worry you?
No, not really, because it always gave them something to talk about, you know.
Right.
So it was, no. Nothing's ever, things like that. As long as people to us were talking about it,
right.
I mean, great. Even if it was bad.
All right, so taking all this into account and the American thing and the American attitude, Bon dies and one would have thought the band would disintegrate because, I mean, it's very hard to replace any lead singer of any, I mean, of such profile like a Mick Jagger or a Pete, or a Roger Daltrey. I mean, it's very hard to replace sort of those sort of people, you know.
It is, yeah.
How did you pull ranks and get it back together again?
Well, at first, because at first, the first thing that happened, we thought, well, we didn't really want to do anything. None of us was in any condition as far as, because with us, with Bon, it was like your brother or a member of your family going.
Yeah.
And so we immediately, at first, we didn't know what to do, you know. And then my brother rang me up a couple of weeks after Bon's funeral and said, listen, do you want to work on some material, just me and you? You know, and we started doing that. And it took our minds off of everything. And then we got the other guys in, and we said, right, what do you want to do? Do we want to continue as a band, or do we want to stop? You know, and everyone do something else, you know. And we decided, we thought, well, if we do, you know, it's going to be pretty hard finding somebody as good as Bon, you know. So we decided we'd go ahead, you know, and try at least. Because we figured, well, if it'd been one of us, Malcolm or myself or something, you know, we figured Bon would have done the same thing, you know. Because we also felt that we still had something, you know, that we wanted to get out there and do, you know. And so we decided from that point on that we would at least give it a try anyhow.
Right.
And we were very fortunate that Brian, more or less, we found out about him. You know, he was one of the, in fact, I don't know if a lot of people know, he was one of the few people Bon actually said was a good singer. I mean, that he actually liked.
Right.
You know? And because Bon had high, you know, for somebody, a vocalist, you know, if he saw somebody good, which to him was very rare, he said it, you know. So he said that he told us this guy, because he had once actually worked when he was with Fraternity in England, supporting the band. Brian was in Geordie, you know.
Yeah.
And Bon I always remember Bon telling us how good a vocalist Brian was. So that stuck in our heads, and then different people came to us. Mutt Langer come to us and said, listen, I know this guy from Geordie, you know.
Right.
He's got a great voice, you know. And he heard him, you know. And but what sort of clinched this for us was all these kids in America. I think Johnson paid them. Were ringing up saying, hey, listen, you know, we've got these records from England of a guy in Geordie. We make a great vocalist for your band. You know? Maybe it was a conspiracy, I think. So.
Yeah. So was it ironical that you're all Scottish, I mean, at this stage, I mean, on yourself, Malcolm.
Yeah, well, Ud's for him. Yeah, well, he's border, I mean, he's just in Newcastle,
yeah,
it's close, you know. I don't know. I mean, it could have been I think anyone, you know. You'd be Chinese or whatever, you know. It's just that, you know, if you've got the tools, you know, and you can use them, right? Yeah.
Okay, so you become a unit again. Now, how hard was that to sort of pull it together? To become a group again?
Well, I think the hardest part, for us it was not so hard because people knew who I was and the other guys.
Sure, but you've lost a songwriter as well.
So I think the hard part was going out there and then you've got to sort of go in front of people again and say, we're going to prove what we can do, you know.
Right.
And that's very difficult. And I mean, I admire anyone who can do that. And then for Brian to do what he's doing, I mean, it's big shoes to fill, to go out there and win over an audience.
Right.
You know, and it's also being for what it is, you know, because to him it can, I mean, a lot of people out there, you can say, oh, this guy's replacing somebody that died or whatever, you know.
Was Brian nervous about coming to Australia because this is where you started from? It was Bond.
Yeah.
And he was going to be judged, obviously.
Yeah, well, I was very nervous, you know. We were lucky, though. I mean, in a few respects at the time, because Bond's parents come and see him, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Scott.
Right.
And we saw them. We were lucky because we opened in Perth, which was Bond's hometown. So it was good, you know, you could get to meet them, and we went and saw them and everything.